Ever stop to think about, like, what's happening inside you right now?
You mean besides that burrito I just had for lunch?
Well, yeah. Besides lunch. But seriously, our bodies are, like, constantly under attack from these tiny little invaders, right? Bacteria, viruses, all that fun stuff. It's like a microscopic war zone in there.
It really is. And what's amazing is that our bodies have this whole intricate defense system set up, ready to fight back. It's honestly pretty incredible when you think about it.
It is. And that's exactly what we're diving deep into today, the world of white blood cells. Those tiny little warriors that are keeping us alive and kicking. We'll be using the Lymph WBC review as our guide today.
It's a fascinating area. By the end of this, you'll practically be an immunology expert yourself.
Okay, so let's break it down. First up, the nonspecific defenses. The first line of defense, right? Think of it like the walls and moats protecting a castle.
Yeah, a great analogy. That's where skin comes in and our mucous membranes, too. They're super effective at keeping most of those nasty pathogens out.
But, I mean, we all know what happens when you get a tiny little cut.
Oh, yeah.
It's like instant entry point for all those germs.
Exactly. It just goes to show how important those barriers are. Even the smallest breach can cause trouble.
So true. It really makes you appreciate your skin a bit more, huh?
Yeah.
But okay, let's say some of those invaders manage to sneak past the walls. What happens then?
That's when the second line of defense kicks in. Think of it like the alarm bells are going off and all the troops are mobilizing.
Ooh, I like that.
This is where we see the white blood cells, like the phagocytes and those antimicrobial proteins really coming into play.
Okay, hold up. Phagocytes. Break that down for me.
So phagocytes, they're like the Pac-Man of the immune system. I'm not even kidding.
Pac-Man? Really?
Yep. They just go around engulfing and destroying any pathogens they come across. Think neutrophils and macrophages, they're like the frontline soldiers.
I remember reading about neutrophils having this crazy attack strategy, something called a respiratory burst.
Oh, yeah, that's why.
What exactly is happening there?
Basically, the neutrophil encounters a pathogen and it's like, time to fight. Releases all these powerful chemicals like superoxide anions, hydrogen peroxide, even hypochlorite.
Hypochlorite. Isn't that like bleach?
Pretty much. It creates this killing zone around itself and just neutralizes the threat.
Wow, that's hardcore.
It is. And you know what's interesting? That pus you sometimes see around a cut, that's actually a sign of those neutrophils hard at work.
So it's like the aftermath of their battle.
Exactly. It's kind of gross, but it's a good sign, really.
All right, well, I'm trying to see the beauty in it, I guess. So we've got the neutrophils, but then there are also eosinophils and basophils.
Whoa, right. Those are important too. Eosinophils are great at tackling those larger invaders like parasites. Plus, they play a role in those pesky allergic reactions.
We are right. And the basophils.
Those guys are like the medics. They release histamine and heparin, helping out the other white blood cells do their thing.
Okay, so we've covered the walls and moats, the frontline soldiers, and the medics. What an impressive system. But then, on top of all that, there's the third line of defense, right?
You got it, the immune system. This is where things get even more sophisticated. It's all about targeted, specific, and long-lasting protection.
The elite squad.
Exactly. This is where the lymphocytes come into play. T cells, B cells, NK cells.
All right, let's break down those lymphocytes a bit. We know that T cells make up like 80% of lymphocytes, B cells around 15%, and NK cells around 5%.
Yep, that's about right.
So what are those different lymphocytes actually doing?
Well, the T cells are like the generals. They direct the immune response, helping identify and target those specific invaders. B cells are more like snipers. They produce antibodies, which are like guided missiles. They lock onto a specific pathogen and mark it for destruction.
That's amazing. So precise.
And then you have the NK cells, the natural killer cells. Those are like the special forces taking out those infected cells, any abnormal cells like cancer cells.
So with all these different lymphocytes and those different percentages, does that ever fluctuate?
It can, actually. Things like your overall health, your age, even genetics can play a role. And certain conditions or illnesses can definitely cause those percentages to shift around a bit.
That makes sense. Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to circle back to the macrophages for a sec.
Yeah.
They seem like they're more than just, your average white blood cell.
Oh, they are. It's like they're specialized units stationed in different parts of the body, each with their own unique job.
Like an army, but inside us.
Exactly. We've got dendritic cells in the skin and mucous membranes. Those are like the scouts, constantly on the lookout. Then there are microglia in the brain, protecting that vital organ.
And what about those dust cells I read about?
Yes. Those are the alveolar macrophages found in the lungs. They're called dust cells because, well, they clean up all the dust and debris we breathe in, Not an easy job.
Yeah, I bet.
And then we've got the hepatic macrophages in the liver, sometimes called Kupffer cells, filtering out toxins and pathogens from the blood.
It's amazing how each part of the body has its own little team of defenders.
Yeah.
So to sum it all up, we've got this incredible multi-layered defense system, right?
Yeah.
The general defenses like skin and mucous membranes, and then those specialized soldiers like the neutrophils, macrophages, and lymphocytes.
Right. It's this complex, dynamic system that's working around the clock to keep us healthy. Makes you wonder, though, what happens when the system doesn't work quite right? When the defenses are down or the wrong cells get activated.
That's a great question. And maybe that's something we can explore in a future deep dive. Until then, folks, keep those brains buzzing and those bodies healthy.